think mainly was just trying to be the best boyfriend I could, and I was seeing myself as a different person now that I look back at it now, and I felt so inspirational, and I think that's what kind of started, where it was probably one night after looking back at that video we did, and I was like, I'm feeling really inspired, kind of thing, like late at night. Over time, I started like think of these scripts or certain hobbies that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And obviously like photography, and was like photography, wanted to play music, wanted to write more, wanted to work more on the video game stuff and other things like that, and trying to get into digital drawing and stuff like that. I guess just in my head, my mentality was at a point where I was like, I'm so confident in myself. I feel like I could do all of those things all at once, pretty much.
Yeah.
And not really thinking too far ahead of, okay, but later down the line, if you're going to do this, if you're going to stay committed to it, it's like, I didn't even really know the word committed.
Right, right.
And I would just be like, if I'm going to, my conscience, like, if you're going to feel like you're committed, then this is probably going to lead downhill. And I was just kind of like, oh, it'll be fine. Cause like, I'm pretty much confident I could balance everything out while being in a relationship.
Yeah.
At the same time.
So kind of the thing that I learned, and I mean, you and me have done this a million times, where I heard somebody else on YouTube talking about it, where, it was, I texted the group chat about this. There was like there's a dude named Rob Scallon on YouTube, and he was talking about how he gets this like specific type of like manic depression, and he'll have a really hard high for like a month, and he wants to start all these projects and like hang out with all these people and do all these things and work on being a better boyfriend and being better playing guitar, and like, I haven't come up with a good YouTube video that's got this many views in a long time. And then he will hit a 6-month doom spiral where there's no hope. I'm laying in bed every night and I'm listening to the same depressing songs and I'm just stuck.
Yep.
And it's extremely difficult to find a way out of it besides isolating until your brain just figures out what feels right.
Yeah.
So I found out that I do that. And at the time that you and me probably made that YouTube video, I was either just coming out of a depression or going into one. But that's also about the last time I burnt out on making the video game stuff. And I think we were working, I think this is before the beginning of Eldritch and Home. Before we started writing that. And I think we were back on Rust and Dust for a period. And then I just like dropped off the face of the planet. And I was like having all these like dramatic fights in my head with people that were not real fights. And I just like, everybody hates me. No one wants to hang out. Nobody's got time. So then I think that's about when I started learning about all the mental health stuff I've learned in the past 3 years, roughly.
That does seem like, like after we recorded the video and it uploaded, which thinking about it now, 2 years ago sounds pretty long, which mainly kind of, and that actually brings me back to, since now it's kind of flowing in my head now, is at some point it was during COVID for writing and stuff. Yeah. And I would say leading to that, it wasn't a point where it led to a downfall. There was, a few couple bumps in the road. But I think, because I remember during 2020, I had the inspiration and created Eldritch and Home game in my head and just started writing things down. Because obviously I was basically just locked in my house. We couldn't leave. Yeah, and I remember at that point, after we recorded the video, we started just getting some more ideas down in your old room and coming up with some ideas. And
that bedroom was smaller than this bedroom.
Yeah. Later on, I had a phone call with a buddy of mine, and there was because he was a guitar player and his brother was a bass player, so they were like, "Hey,"
oh, that's when the band started.
Yeah, and they were like, "Hey, we were actually thinking if you wanted to be part of the band."
Dude, nothing. I was so jealous that you started a band without me.
Yeah, but
why didn't you talk to me first?
And at that point, I was like, well, yeah. Then at that point, it came to writing more, and then we, started creating somewhat of like a little team, and then we started writing more. And I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to find a balance of doing this and playing instruments and writing and things like that.
Yeah,
so it's like there's a balance.
There's a balance, but that was too much.
And then committing to a relationship, and then I felt like, okay, well, maybe I can't really balance all three of these things. But then later on, I started getting into photography. I started doing some research on famous photographers, obviously social media, just finding all these photography pages and things like that. I literally told myself, and not saying it in a bad way, but beginning of 2023, I think at that point, I literally told myself the biggest lie ever, because I was like,
what was that?
Well, it was like, okay, this is going to be the year where I'm going to be,
2023 is going to be my year.
Yeah. But in my mentality, mental wise, it was like, okay, I'm going to commit more to writing for video games. I'm going to commit more to playing the drums. I'm going to commit more to starting a photography business.
I don't think for a guy like you or me, I don't think our problem is the commitment, because we get so excited and we know we have all the skills to make this thing happen. I think you and I spiral on making things perfect, having everybody involved at all times.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of finished is better than perfect. And that's something I had to learn from a number of people, but firstly my graphic design teacher at Tulsa Tech.
I heard a short quote the other day, and it really got me stop and think when I read it. But it was literally just 3 words. It was just progress over perfection.
Oh, that's a good one. We're both too hard on ourselves sometimes. It shows. And you got to learn how to give yourself a break.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that bad. I didn't do that bad of a job.
Yeah.
You're stressed out about it. Don't worry about it. That was like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now you're making a new YouTube video. This is number 2. People are going to be pumped. Okay, so we talked about the burnout.
Yeah.
And how much have you grown in the past year or two? What things have you learned about yourself in life that you would pass on to somebody else?
I'm sorry, I was just thinking of you going, yeah, 2 mics.
Tell me how that makes you feel.
9/11. I would definitely.
It was too quiet.
Literally, the first word that came to my head was a lot, but I'm like, but
it's more than you think. You're not giving yourself enough credit.
True. Yeah.
Because you've grown a lot.
Yeah.
Both of us have.
I've definitely been able to being over a relationship and just kind of honestly able, as any human being would, and able to step back and just be like, okay, I need to just kind of look at everything that's happened and just able to reflect on like how I can improve everything. And well, not everything, but be like, what do I need to do to able to balance things out.
Right.
And I had a conversation with a friend's dad, and I mean, this was a couple years ago, but I think it was probably like my 24th birthday. And he gave me this, just kind, dad speech, and he was just like, you need to focus more on time. And he's like, you need to focus more on percentage wise, making things a certain percentage. He's like, you don't need to rush. He's like, why?
Dude, you have all the time in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And
you could really turn your YouTube channel around in your 60s. You only got like 40 years until it's like too late.
Yeah.
No,
Same to you.
But something, and I try not to stress about this too much. Try not to think about this too much, but something a lot of people don't think about, or maybe it's never been talked about around them, or they just never been told, but like, time is a limited commodity. We only have so much of it. And it's the most valuable because there are no refunds or returns.
Yep.
And don't waste it being stressed out, angry, and pissed off all the time. You're really going to hate yourself for that. And I have a serious stress problem, and I've been managing it quite well in comparison to the majority of my life. So I'm doing pretty good. Don't think about how much time you're wasting, but make sure you're not uncomfortable, angry, upset for the majority of it. You're going to have all of that. Don't beat yourself up for any of it. If you failed a test, and it's not like the last test you'll ever take or your last opportunity to, if it's not the end of the world, don't treat it like it is. Just, that was bad today, but like, the sun's out. Yeah. It's not 110 degrees anymore. It's the end of the summer. It's not going to be too hot anymore.
I know.
And just let yourself enjoy what is left to enjoy while it's still here, because it's not going to be here forever.
Yeah. Compared to me,
it's not very concise.
Compared to me in high school, the way if I failed a test, I'm going to beat myself up for the rest of the day. And compared to now, it's like, learn from it, do whatever you got to do, and just, like whatever it is for the test, like look back on what you got wrong, and it's like, okay, well, these are the things I can fix. These are the things, like one question I got wrong, which I thought was right. But obviously, it's so easy to judge yourself than trying to like...
Oh, yeah. And
yeah,
something that I will always be relearning throughout my life is how you will always give better advice to people around you. But you will never take your own advice unless you are actively thinking about it and somebody told you to. And the one thing I've always known to tell people who need advice is to treat yourself like a best friend. If you think you're like dating someone that's bad for you, like think of the situation like, would I really let my best friend, and this isn't like a real example for anyone who's watching, but would I really let my best friend, be with this awful person if it's so bad for them, makes them unhappy? Do what's right for you, and just treat yourself like you care about yourself. You really deserve it.
Which I think a lot of people today, even with younger generations, with and I know it's such a thing that people say literally all the time these days, but the literally the words, like love yourself and respect yourself. But I think we tend to reflect it or push it away.
Yeah. And
be like, well, no, it'll go away. Which, it's like, for me, I used to think, well, I'll just sleep it off, and the next day I'll just forget about this problem or whatever. But then the next day, from whatever error I made or something, that'll be like, oh, well, that just gives me a clearer perspective. I'm like, how I could have handled this or how I could have handled that. And I'm like, then it's not that bad. I'm like, why was I getting so angry and overreacting?
This feels like we're journaling together.
Yeah.
I like this. This is a good video. People are going to like this.
I mean, obviously it's just a thing over time, you know, you just got to do. And like compared to me in high school, I mean, I could probably say for the both of us, you know, it's something that we bottled up in high school and younger years.
Dude, I think I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
Yeah, the both of us now. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to learn from this, take some time, you know, breathe. Sometimes I literally have to tell myself to breathe, even though on one side of my brain is like, shut up, you don't need to breathe. And on the other side, this isn't like a life or death situation like your body might think it is. Like the stress is like a primal life or death situation, but like you're fine. Yeah, you're probably fine. You don't really need to tell, you know, everybody everything, you know, every single ounce, but
we're not going to tell you everything.
But like, let's say, you know, just for example, for me and him, you know, it became a thing over time where it's like, hey, I had a hard day with whatever, you know, with just even with relationship, work, stress, all this stuff, and just being able to. And the other thing is if you look at us, two different perspectives. So it's like me telling him about what's going on, he could see a totally different perspective and just be like, well, hey, this isn't that bad. This could be solvable or whatever.
For example, I have a really bad habit of not listening when people are trying to tell me something's wrong. And it will take me months to find out that something is wrong and I need to do something about it. I just didn't understand that they were I'm like trying to be an optimist and say, oh, it's not so bad or whatever. Yeah. So I haven't figured that one out yet, but that's one thing I'm working on for myself.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it's like it's so instantly easy to judge and just do it. And then after a while, you know, we're just like, oh, I shouldn't really thought about that. Oh, yeah. It's like, that was a little too quick, you know?
Yeah. And don't linger on your embarrassing moments. Yeah. Because it's not going to help. Journaling helps. Get it off your mind, write it down. Like, I save every cool painting I find on the internet. I download it just so that way I'll never lose it. And I save all this stuff, and I feel like it's the same thing when I linger on an embarrassing moment or like something I wish I did differently.
But
the purpose of that, I feel like, is to maybe learn something so that way it doesn't happen again, or that you're prepared the next time. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, nothing went wrong, and you're just anxious about it because it's never happened to you before, and it probably went fine. And you just need to, you know, write it down in a journal or a piece of paper, throw it away. Because, you know, it's like you write stuff down physically, even if you don't look at it again and it like sticks in your memory a little better. Maybe that's enough to like convince, it works for me, to convince my OCD brain that I'm not going to forget about this and I can move on and I'm not lingering on it anymore. That's the benefit that I found with journaling, but I don't actively do that.
Even for the both of us, I think we have, like, even in text conversations where some of the stuff we would linger on, it happened years ago.
Oh, dude. And stuff from high school even, or older.
And we would just be like talking about it now, and we're like, why are we still lingering about it? It's like, we just need to let that go, you know? And
we should reminisce about stuff later. Oh, that's cringy.
But yeah. So basically, kind of like, just kind of going back a little bit with this episode in, I don't know why episode. I'm thinking the podcast. But
oh yeah.
But
hey,
anyway,
Tech Brew, how you doing?
Yeah.
Go check out Tech Brew, our podcast.
Yeah.
Who you really just watch for the cool audio guy. But also they like talk about like tech and
Nobody
stuff.
cares about my face.
Yeah, they want the voice. They want the voice guy.
They want the Jamie and the Joe Rogan podcast guy.
I'm Jamie. I'm the only reason you watch it.
I would say for 2023, it was one of those, groundbreaking just things for me where I did so much reflection on myself and did so much learning about myself, way more than years and years and years ago. And the thought of I could do all of these things all at once, and then just all of that crumbling down. And that led to such a big downfall of me going through so much depression and anxiety and just all this stuff
But remember this, there was no preventing you going through that, because if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't know something's wrong and you got to fix it.
Right.
And the majority of that stuff comes from stuff that happened to you when you were younger you didn't understand. And
True.
It messed you up a little bit.
True.
I'm kind of learning about some of that stuff. I'm not blaming anybody for it. And I think that's what they mean when they tell you to love yourself. Because if you have issues and you start dating somebody, you're bringing those issues in with you, and you're still beating up on yourself and you're down on yourself, and it really drags on everybody in the situation. And I highly recommend you at least begin figuring out your stuff. Things will be happier in the long run. Which
I would say for the both of us, when people would say like, love yourself and stuff, and it's like, oh, I do, but it's like,
or like,
do
you know one that
really?
You know what I learned recently? When people say be yourself, that actually like means something.
It does kind of make you ponder.
No. Like, I'm used to acting the way I feel like people want me to act. And so I'm like too polite around strangers.
Yep.
I have a hard time listening in those situations. Like, I don't remember names. I don't remember what they were talking about and things like that. It's very difficult with like customers at work.
And that was,
I got to figure out what I like, who I am, and what I like to do, which sometimes I know what that is, but it loses itself on me sometimes.
Yeah. And like going back to, like with coming home, and it's like, all I want to do is just go to sleep. But the thing I have in that little voice in the back of my head, like, challenge yourself, don't overdo it, but like push yourself a little bit, just a little bit. And that just started reminding me of like podcasts I'm listening to with like Jordan Peterson and things like that. And
you're canceled.
Yeah. With writing, I wanted to get more into writing because like I wanted to get back into story writing, but I'm having millions and millions of ideas going on in my head, and it's like, well, I cannot put this down on paper because I have like 10 story ideas going on in my head and it's driving me crazy.
Write them down.
But then, write them down.
Even if it's just like, oh, that's another thing. I don't know exactly what to do with the YouTube channel yet, but I would love to talk about writer's block in a video and stuff. And a lot of the times you're stuck on bad ideas or ideas you think are bad, because I'm used to going with the first thing that came to mind, and it's usually the best idea that I have. But if all you are coming up with is things that you think are bad ideas, you're not going to write anything down. You have to write down the bad ones, and you can move forward out of writer's block. That's just a little thing. I do think you should go over some of the relationship stuff, because somebody can have expectations for the way you behave and the things you like to do, where you're worried that it's going to upset them or make them self-conscious in some way, and so you don't do that thing anymore, and you kind of lose those interests. In this example being photography with models, whoever that be, that could be just people on the street. But if who you're with is too insecure to let you do photography because you love it, and that's all it is, it's not anything secret that you're doing behind someone's back. Clearly there's something there that either needs to change or end. I didn't mean to take that over for you.
No, you're good. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we
but
can.
I feel like that's important for people to understand, because there's a lot of people that don't know when it's time to make a change relationship wise. I have a hard time ending friendships.
It's definitely something that I maybe within 2.5 years, or maybe close to 3 in my last relationship, where I had to realize that I'm going to have to put in a whole lot more work than I was expecting, because I thought, just going into this because of the person's looks and the person's personality, and it was like that was about it, and it would just be a joyous, free ride, and it's like, no, that's not, and one thing I heard from Jordan Peterson too was relationships are a lot like work, as the same thing as you talking to your boss about your problems or issues.
Yes, because the way they treat you in your day-to-day affects who you are and who you can be in your day-to-day.
Yep.
And when it comes to being at home, when you should be your most comfortable, most vulnerable, most open, you need to be treated with respect, and you need to be listened to. Situations they differ, but it seems like a general truth that is important.
And mainly the thing, and it's so overstimulated today, but communication is the biggest thing. And even for something I had to learn too was, if the person, peer or whoever in the relationship, showing me, the issues or the situations and things, I would just bottle it up, because I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. It's just gonna sleep on it and start a new day tomorrow, and just and maybe shove it under.
Maybe we can just get to a place where we're just ignoring that it ever happened, and that they're not acting like this for another few months, but then it's going to blow up again.
It's going to come up,
because it's either they have an issue they need to work through, like whether it's trauma or something they're not talking about.
Yeah.
Or you do, and you don't understand how that makes other people feel in, like, working through your stuff, your trauma and stuff. It affects other people. And that's the biggest reason for working through it, is you don't want, like, my burnout situations where I have these like 1 or 2 month highs where I just want to do everything, and then like 6 months worth of depression. I'm like lashing out at my friends, and like he's had to tell me, like, dude, we can't. I need a break from hanging out. Like, this is too much. You're kind of being an asshole. Like, I needed to hear that, because I didn't know what I was doing. And it was like making them uncomfortable to come over.
Like I was saying earlier about different perspectives.
Yeah.
Is how you were seeing it, but I was seeing it, and just be like, hey, I need to show you, like, put a mirror in front of you.
Yes.
And just be like, hey.
But like, it's not eye for an eye. Don't do that childish BS of like, like, if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be a jerk to you. Like, don't be that guy. That's a real POS to be around.
That's just also being toxic. Like I said, there's gonna be trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
The relationship isn't gonna be perfect.
The other thing they don't talk about much is when you're going through fixing things and learning about your trauma and trying to undo the damage that's been done. Although there will always be some level of permanent change to you, it can be worked on, but working through it is also very difficult. You're going to have little anxiety attacks and different just rough days, because you're thinking about this stuff so much, trying to figure it out. But I do promise you have more good days during those times. I'm a lot happier of a person in the past year or two, just trying to figure out why I am the way I am.
Yeah. And being able to, after, going through this breakup where it took me, for example, for those watching, and it's like, you know what? I'm just going to put effort into putting stuff into more work into the podcast and other things too. And I would say really quick for anybody that's like, that just got through a breakup kind of thing. Yes, it's obviously normal. Yes, do have time to reflect but don't do it too much. And yes, it's normal for you to mourn and things like that. That's part of human nature. That's what we all do. Yeah. But for me, I feel like in my life, and even looking back from, 2023, and I was like, you know what? I'm about to start this podcast. I'm just going to start doing some editing, going to start doing some other stuff into it. And that was one of the main things for me, therapy wise, I would probably say, that helped me get things off my mind and put that energy into the podcast, if that makes sense.
I thought of another thing.
Yeah.
Just so you all know, I am not going to therapy until, there may be a day when I do go. Mm-hmm. I've not found a need to yet. And I have heard, which it helps to hear it, although I've always had the feeling of, and I feel like a lot more people need to know, therapy is not for everybody and is not a cure-all for everyone's problems. And every therapist is probably going to be different. So on that note, I'm doing so far all of my own mental health work on my own. I just happen to have a few people around me that sort of know a few things to like help me figure things out. I've made great progress without any direct help of anyone explaining things to me. Sometimes it just takes some research and some deep thought in alone time. Yeah, that was it. Just not everybody needs it. And don't let someone tell you that you need therapy, because that's not for them to understand about you.
That's all I got. So,
well, okay, Evan. This was Tech Brew. Please drink your caffeine responsibly. I'm Cameron. Wait, does he have a screen name? I'm Cameron.
It's just Cam.
I'm Cam.
Yeah, I'm Cam.
They call me Cam.
Yeah,
Cam the Camel.
So yeah, if you made it this far, do you want to tell them what your channel is, if they want to check out your stuff?
I think I'm gonna think of a new YouTube name.
Okay. Yeah.
I honestly have no idea what to call it, because I've been using my Xbox gamer tag for the longest time, and that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to blow up, but if in the future this channel does link to it, I plan on recording my creative journey through many different interests and trying new things. I'm into cars, guitars, electric wiring. I paint, I spray paint, I illustrate. I'm relearning how to draw. It's something I've not spent enough time maintaining the skill of.
Woodworking too.
Woodworking's a new one. Yeah. That is a new one. I'm pretty good with that, at least in terms of someone that's never been taught.
I'm pretty good.
I'm doing all right. I'm into writing, and me and Evan, me and Trash here, we're in the middle of making 3 or 4 video games. But besides some behind the scenes stuff, you might not know anything about that, and they might never get finished. It's just kind of a fun creative project with a bunch of our friends. I'm super into audio, so maybe I'll get into like recording or mixing. Maybe I'll learn how to like scratch on a turntable. Yeah, that would be new for me. I love hip hop, but I've only ever played like rock, funk, punk, and jazz.
You like jazz?
You like jazz?
Yeah.
I might have some like mental health videos like this, because the initial intent of my YouTube channel was to help people through creative block or whatever it is. But that was before I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And
a lot.
I realize not every video can be that. But honestly, talking in front of the camera with you is maybe more comfortable, and I will probably continue to do it.
Because I think this was a thing like maybe a few months prior where we were discussing about it and just coming up with ideas. And so until recently, I was kind of like...
We've been talking about it for years.
I'll probably say for years.
I really put things off.
So thank you so much for listening and watching. So I'm a Monocon Trash, and this is...
Not Trash. You can call me Gray.
This is Gray.
They call me Gray.
But
yeah, maybe I'll just go as Gray if there's not a channel named that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look out for that. Look out for Gray.
I'll probably just do Gray with an E. Gray. Yeah.
No. Don't be that person. Spell it right.
But anyway, thank you so much for listening and watching. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, groovy.
So there might be some more stuff like this on my channel that I'll probably discuss about. But this was something definitely on my chest that I wanted to just get out.
Oh yeah, beautiful video.
Appreciate it. And we will catch you in the next one.
Catch you later. No, we need like an anime pose, like a...